Welcome to the second class of this Empathy Circle Facilitators Training. We are recording, just want to point that out. Edwin said recording, make everyone aware that that's happening, where we record for educational purposes. Today's class is the second in the four class series, and today we're going to practice introducing the Empathy Circle. You're going to do that, and you're also going to practice facilitating. So when we do our breakouts, those are the two activities you'll be doing in the breakouts. Before that, we're just going to do a check-in, and that way we kind of maximize the time for practice. So checking in today, just maybe how you're feeling, and if you had an empathy buddy call this week, or if you facilitated an empathy circle this week, let us know. Just say something brief about how that went. We'd like your check-in to be 30 seconds or around there. So let's start with, how about well, and I guess I'd also just like to well, let's just do that. So Michelle, would you go first?
Yeah, gladly. The week flew actually. Really good. I'm excited, I think, about the session ahead, about this class. I had my empathy buddy call with Priyavata, that's over in Bangalore, and it was brilliant. I think we started for half an hour, and about an hour and a half later we were still going. Yeah, and it was just it was kind of empathy buddy magic, where we kind of realized that we're on different sides of the world on the same path, and so it felt great. I didn't get to facilitate a circle this week. I'll make that a goal this week.
Thanks, Michelle. Suzanne?
Oh, hi. I had a buddy conversation with Sam, and we did that earlier this morning, and it was really great. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I think it got both our heads in a good space for the session today. I haven't done a circle yet. I still feel a bit anxious about doing that. But and also I looked at some of my friends and I thought, don't know if they're the right people to start with. Anyway, maybe this week I'll get the courage up.
Okay, great. Thanks, Suzanne. Peter?
Yeah, it's feeling pretty calm and peaceful at the moment. Had a decent day. Tatiana, I think, emailed me. We didn't connect though, to be my empathy circle buddy. I don't see her in the call. And I didn't facilitate any, but my wife and I have been introducing it to her, and we've been kind of empathy circles together during our nightly talks. So pretty cool.
Great. Thank you. Samantha.
Hi. Yes, Suzanne and I met this morning, as she's mentioned, and it was really good. It was really good to bring my brain back into the space, and I felt like it was a really good connection. And I was a little bit worried that I'd left it because we've been so busy and trying to connect right before the meeting, but it actually worked out really well because now I'm in the space. I haven't actually done any empathy circles with anybody this week. I am practicing the listening though. So
great. Sounds like lots of people are preparing. Victoria.
Yeah, well, I had this empathy buddy call with AC, and it was so cool. We had a nice circle, and we ended up sharing ideas and thoughts about all this empathy culture. So it was so nice. We're supposed to be just 30 minutes, and we extended, I think, more than an hour or something like that. It was so cool. And then I haven't facilitated a circle yet. I don't feel like that confident. As at home, my mom is a kind of facilitator too. So I feel like a little bit shy. She's always the one leading the circles at home. That is mostly what I could do because I cannot really gather with friends that often. but I think I can try maybe this week. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So Joe, welcome. This is your first meeting.
Hi there, everyone. Yeah, so I'm Joe, and I'm calling in from Macau at the moment, and I wasn't able to join last week. So, but I watch parts of the videos, and yeah, so I'm looking forward to catching up and yeah, engaging in some of the empathy course.
Great, welcome. Sharni.
Okay. Yes, I felt like Suzanne and a number of others that didn't feel quite ready to facilitate a circle this week. But I do have plans to do it next week. I have a 2-day kind of work conference with my team. And so I have asked my boss if I could do it as part of our work conference. So I will be brave next week and look forward to telling you how it goes. And Shosh and I emailed and connected, but we weren't able to have our buddy chat, but we've got plans in place to kind of make sure that happens as soon as possible. So yeah, that's me.
Great. Okay, AC.
Yeah, hello. I had a great chat with Victoria for the empathy call. That was a pleasure for sure. Nice to just catch up and dream a little bit too, look to the future. Haven't got another circle together, but I've got a short list of people to maybe pull for one. And yeah, just looking forward to today. Nice to see you all again.
Thanks. Kavita?
Yes, so I had a wonderful empathy call with Sue. It was fantastic. And I haven't gotten a chance to facilitate a circle. It's been a super busy week for me. I've just moved into a new place, and actually we're in the middle of a cyclone right now. I'm just hoping my connectivity lasts this time, but given that we're in the middle of the cyclone, I don't know what's going to happen. So let's hope for the best. Anyway, good to be with you.
Thanks. Let's see, Charlene. Or Celine, sorry.
I have not met with my empathy buddy, and I have an ongoing NVC class/practice group that's been going weekly for about 5 months. So I had them do the empathy part of, not the whole formal empathy circle protocol, and without them knowing what I was doing. And so I got to see some of the challenges and the places that definitely need refining in terms of my practice. So I got to learn a little bit about what more I got to learn.
Great, thank you. Priyanka, or Priyanka. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right.
My empathy buddy meeting was really wonderful with Michelle, and we've decided to continue it every week till indefinitely because we enjoyed it so much. And I haven't hosted a circle yet, but I'm planning to do it after this training, actually. Thank you.
Okay, great. Timothy?
Yeah, I've been away from email and internet for several days, so I have not connected to my empathy buddy, so I express regret about that, and I'm hoping that can be reconnected for sure. And the circle that I'm doing is wanting to set up a regular one with my neighbors in my small community, just for the purpose in and of itself of empathy. And so I'm exploring the challenge. I've said in the past that it's 51% to get people to the table. And then, well, then there's other challenges too. So I've been really grateful to have 4 people out of about 25 express interest. And so we're planning when that's going to happen, and they're looking to me to facilitate it.
Edwin has a very good strategy for getting people to participate, which is to tell them that you're doing a class and you have an assignment to do this. And so then they can feel like they're helping you by participating. People calling on people's desire to help, which is most people usually have a pretty strong desire to do that. The other thing I'd suggest is that you give them a copy of the practice, the description of the empathy circle, so then that they know what it is that they're getting into, and you're not the only one holding that information. That's another good.
Thank you, Lou. Yeah.
Let's see. So Rita.
Yeah, I did my empathy buddy call with Leona. We know each other for a while now, and so it's really, really lovely to do that, and just to share from a really present moment about what we're excited about, what we're challenged by, and things like that. So that was really lovely. And I missed the task about doing a circle. So I'm going to put it on my list now with my housemates, because I've been inspired by what everyone else is doing with their neighbors and stuff. So thanks for sharing.
Great. Leona?
Yeah, great empathy exchange with Rita, just checking in and catching up after a bit of a break from really having time together. I haven't done a circle this week. I'm pretty busy at work. So there's just not enough time to carve out that couple of hours for the next couple of weeks, but that's okay. But I do an exchange with my husband called our Morning 5, where we do 5 minutes each, just doing an empathy listening exchange, pretty much straight as if it was like this. And it's been absolutely transformative. Yeah. So just that's another spin-off from this process. That's been fabulous.
Thank you. Edwin.
I've been doing empathy circles almost every day, totally in the zone, in the empathy zone. We just finished our cohort number 6 yesterday. So that was really, it was a really wonderful group, as is this. So yeah, doing, excited about the political one, getting the Congress members. I was just talking with Timothy that we want to do a California state empathy proposition, where we, you get these signed propositions, and it's like to create more empathy in the state. So just brainstorming lots of ideas.
Great. Bill?
Yeah, I've been doing the other facilitation training. I've been really stoked about that. I'm really, I was really enjoying this cohort as well. And I've been doing, I'd say about a circle a day, over the week. Not always facilitating though.
Yeah, thanks, Bill. And I'm feeling very happy to be here. Very excited to see all your faces and to move forward with the next phase of this training. I've also been doing other trainings with Bill this week, so I've been immersed in empathy, plus spending a lot of time with family, giving empathy, not so much getting it, but giving it for various things that they are coping with. And fortunately, I have my wife is able to give me empathy. So I have one person who can listen to me reliably. So that's nice. Okay, so I think the next thing we're going to do really is get into circles, get into breakouts. Rita, Leona, Bill, myself, and Edwin will be facilitating the breakouts, and you'll be practicing doing an intro to the circle, and then taking a turn facilitating, like a 20-minute or so turn, before we come back to debrief how that experience went. Are there any questions that people have before we break out? Or anything any of the other instructors want to add?
I'm on a different computer and away from my notes and everything. So I'm wondering if you could put in the chat maybe the list of the values of an empathic culture, or maybe a couple, 2 or 3 basic agreements to draw on. That would help me in this moment if it's not too difficult.
Okay. Anything else?
I can post
So
it.
I've got one question that's come up
Yeah.
for me during the week.
Yeah.
it's sort of the idea of confidentiality. We sort of, I don't know whether we've talked about that before. And I feel that, you know, what happens in the group needs to stay in the group, but it's not really confidential, is it? Because it's recorded and open to other people. And I don't know.
Well, not every empathy circle is recorded. So there's that. I would say, so you can have that. So confidentiality is not a set condition of kind of standard empathy circle practice, but certainly you can add that. If you want to hold circles that you would like to be confidential, you can tell people that, and you can ask people to agree to that at the beginning of the circle. I would caution against, if you don't really know the people in the circle and they don't really know each other very well, I just caution about creating a false sense of confidentiality when you don't really know if you can trust the people who are there to keep what you're saying as confidential. And you want to be careful as facilitator not to create a false sense of confidentiality for someone who might not recognize, who might exercise poor judgment about that. So those are the two cautions that I offer. I'd say if you're really doing, I do things in other contexts where there's very strict confidentiality, and we actually have people sign an agreement saying, I agree to keep this confidential, and they sign something. And if I was doing really sensitive circles and I wanted to make sure that that was the case, I would not only ask people to have a verbal agreement, but I would ask them to sign something as well.
Okay.
Can I add something about that?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I guess like I see it in two contexts that like I run, you know, like some sharing circles, and sometimes I state like 4 agreements and I explain what confidentiality means, but that in those circles, like I'm inviting people to share specifically about something that's really deep, and yeah, and that can happen in these circles. But I also understand that with empathy, it's kind of like yeah, it's a practice to take this into like everyday conversation. So yeah, it doesn't necessarily have to be at that level, and people will just share what they're, you know, they're okay with sharing and stuff. So I feel like it's not always needed, but it's depends what you're talking about and what topic you're introducing and who you're with and all that. That's been my experience.
Thanks, Rita. Any other instructor have something to add?
I would just say that in facilitating circles for people in XR, a lot of them, it wasn't explicit confidentiality, but they asked not to be recorded, and in those breakout circles. And in that case, there was a sort of like a relaxation. People felt a little bit safer. And the important thing is to read the room to find out what people are doing. That's it. Thanks.
Okay.
I'd add something just quickly that it can be really helpful for people to consider to learn to develop the skill of their own boundaries around what they disclose, and, you know, to say, while we hold that what's happening in here remains relatively confidential, there's never any guarantee ever anyway. Even if we make the promise, people slip up. So to help people, really encourage people to be mindful of their level of self-disclosure and self-respecting, rather than asking everybody else to do it for them. You know, we can hold that we would like people to do it for us, but it's our job to know what we're prepared to disclose into an open group, particularly. Yeah.
Thanks, Leona. Okay.
Just one comment is that in the breakout circles, you'll be facilitating an empathy circle. And if this is a topic that's very alive for you, you can make it your topic of your circle to discuss more.
Yeah, when it's your turn to facilitate in the breakouts, the topic is your choice.
I had a very quick question. Do we have a little, maybe I missed this. Is there a process for feedback after we facilitate our small piece? Is that built into the process?
Yes.
Yeah, the person who's running your breakout room will do that.
Thank you.
Okay, so let's get going.
Okay, there'll be two groups with 3 people, mine and Lou's, and so let's see. Open all rooms. There we go. So you'll see your room pop up. This is the men's room.
We're in the men's room.
Let me
Standing
see.
next to each
Sorry, you
other.
got stuck in a meeting and assume you can't join because you'll be breakout rooms by then. You won't until 12:30. So shoot. Let me just send her an email that she can join. Reply. You can join. That was Tatiana. So doing. And you had to leave early. I wasn't clear on like at what time that is Pacific, Peter.
So basically 20 minutes before this whole thing ends.
Oh, okay, cool.
So I'm here for the majority of the time.
Okay, I'll keep an eye out for this other person. So what we're doing is what you do is the facilitators are structuring it a bit, each group differently. So you have like, you go in, do the how-to, do an empathy circle, and then you lead an empathy circle. We have 3 minute for the circle, since there's less, of us here, less time. And then you set the topic as well. And then I'll keep track of the overall time you have 25 minutes, and then we'll have 5 minutes debrief, and then the next person, and then we'll have extra time in this group. So, and you can sing the introduction. You're asking about that. So let me just set 25 minutes.
Are we expecting anybody else to arrive in this particular room with the three of us?
The other person may arrive. Tatiana, if she arrives, I'm going to bring her into this room. So I'm going to keep tracking time. If she arrives, I might have to go into the breakout, into the main hall to bring her in. So just a note about that. So I think we're ready. Anybody want to? Okay, is it questions?
Yeah, just before we begin, Peter, that's your website. What's it called again?
Thestoa.ca.
I looked at just the front splash page of that, and the topics and the richness stirred up there. It got me like my heart was like, wow, a playground.
Yeah.
I was like, look at all these topics. Wow. I was really excited by that project you're working on.
Beautiful. That's the goal. Mine and the heart too. So I'm glad it worked.
Rigorous philosophy.
Yeah, I've talked to other people and they say, that was with Peter. Wow, he was in your training. So they're very impressed that you were taking part in this. So.
I'm hiding now.
And it's recorded.
Yeah.
So I did put the person who was worried about the recording into a different group, so it kind of shifted things around. So yeah, who'd like to start? If you want to do it, Peter, since you're going to need to leave sooner. So.
Okay. I was hoping Timothy would start.
Whoever.
But if you're cool.
No, I can start.
Okay. Yeah. I would like to. Yeah. I need to warm up right now. My mind.
Okay. Yeah. Warm it up. Get the juices flowing. Okay. Okay. So I have a total of maybe 20 minutes.
25 minutes, and then it'll be 5 minutes debrief.
Okay. So what I'm going to do is, Peter, thanks for asking me, because I like diving in without warming up. I don't have notes. I don't have anything. This is just from my experience being with Edwin, out on the street, as it were. Welcome. This is an empathy circle with the three of us. And when I say this is an empathy circle, what I see that as an invitation for each of us to listen to each other for the purpose of understanding the other, and for each of us to speak our authentic experience for the purpose of being understood, as well as for the purpose of us understanding ourselves. In other words, this gift of listening supports us all. When someone listens to each of us, it supports our connection to ourselves. And for me, that benefit of empathy stands out, because if I can, through the listening of others and the reflection of others, know myself better, I return to my power and my capacity and my creativity and everything. So this circle is an invitation. Now the structure, there's a couple of agreements I'd love for us to make in conducting this circle. And first of all, we'll do this for the next maybe 23 minutes or so. So I'm wondering if that's okay for this basic time, we'll be able to be together. Is that okay for both of you? Okay, cool. And the next agreement would be that I'm going to ask a question and that each of us speaks to that question. So, and I'll propose that question in just a moment. And then the third agreement is that each one of us, whoever's speaking, speaks by themselves without interruption for a period of time. And I'm just going to say for 2 minutes, and I will kind of monitor that. I don't want to hold that firmly, but we'll speak to the question for 2 minutes. And when you're about to speak, I invite you to name who you'd like to speak to in this circle. It may be to the whole circle. It's your choice, of course. But invite you to speak to somebody. And also, I just want to back up and remind us all that we have absolute choice how we participate in terms of speaking. We may not want to speak, absolutely, no problem at all. So we've got this question. We have an opportunity to speak for 2 minutes to that question, to whoever you want to in this group. And having spoken, you will have a chance to hear back from the listener to whom you were speaking, to reflect their understanding of what you shared. And the goal, or what I would hope would happen, is that the speaker reaches that state that we all know so well, when we know we've been heard and we feel that sense of relief or completion or maybe calm or quiet in our mind and heart, having been heard, you know, that feeling in the body. That's, from my perspective, a very important outcome of each exchange. So with this 2 minutes, I don't want to hold firm to that, but at least to have 2 minutes to begin, and then have somebody, your listener, reflect back and see if they've got it. And then, if you want to correct them, no problem. A little bit of a give and take there until the speaker reaches the state of knowing that they've been heard, and that speaker has that experience of calming, being quiet. Oh, that's a good place to stop. Great. When that happens, then the speaker will have a chance to invite somebody. Oh, excuse me. Then what I would propose is that the listener gets to speak, if they so choose, to the question that I'm about to propose. So then the listener becomes a speaker. They get to choose who they want to speak to. And then the same exchange happens. A couple minutes, the listener gets to reflect back after that couple minutes, just to get a sense of, see if they really heard somebody. And then we'll get to that state again where the speaker has been heard and knows it and has that experience. And then we can proceed that way for maybe several rounds in our group of 3. And I wanted to ask us to acknowledge a couple of things before we begin also. Number one, about confidentiality. In this particular circle, we're being recorded. I would ask each of us to consider what we speak and share with our own sense of our boundaries from our own privacy. In other words, to have responsibility, knowing that anybody in the world could see this recording, that we share what we feel comfortable sharing with the world. And I'd invite that approach. So having made this invitation for this basic structure, I'm about to propose the question. But I'd like to see if either of you have any questions about this particular circle and what we're about to do and how we're about to do it in terms of, and in fact, would you agree to my invitation? So I'd love to ask that first. And if you do, or if you have anything to add, we can change it. So we got a double thumbs up from Edwin. Wow, a single thumbs up from Peter. Oh, we got double. We are on. We're going to do this. Okay, wonderful. All right. So now I get to think up a fun question. I would like to hear, considering in this country, the United States, that families, my observation for at least 5 families that I know personally, that family relationships have been damaged and torn and sometimes shattered by the political divides in our country. So that's happening. And relationships have been broken, fractured, and people aren't talking, fathers, daughters, brothers and sisters. So given that observation that that's happening, I would like to hear from you if you have any hope of how to mend those family relationships that have been torn and damaged by a political debate between left and right. If you have hope or ideas about that, just any kind of hopeful, constructive thoughts and reflections on that. Maybe some things you've done or seen, or just maybe you have no hope. But I'd like to focus our attention on that question. And let's see. I've already done a lot of talking, so I would love to hear from one of you if you're willing to begin. And I'll keep time and give you a general 2-minute heads up. And so if either one of you want to begin by sharing your thoughts and feelings about that particular question, and maybe pick who you'd like to speak to regarding that.
Well, I'll start. I'll speak to Peter, I guess.
I accept.
I accept the challenge. There's kind of 2 parts to that. One is we've been doing family empathy circles, and I find that that's very helpful for supporting empathy within the family. And the other idea that I've started working on is to hold empathy circles with the politicians, between the politicians, like in Congress, and kind of doing a thrust there, because I figure if we can have this modeled at this political level, that'll sort of trickle down. And yeah, so that's first part.
So there's 2 parts of how you're approaching this. One is to do customized family empathy circle. And then the other one is to get politicians to do empathy circles, sort of as a trickle down empathy effect.
Yeah, it's trickle down empathy. I like that. That's a new trickle down approach. So it's on Fridays, I'm holding an empathy cafe on that topic. How do we foster empathy circles foster a culture of empathy in the family? And out of that group, I'd like to develop a training module that's specifically for this topic. Like, how do you bring it into the family? Because there's a lot of resistance. It's like shifts the power dynamics in family. So there's a real, we don't want to shift the power dynamics. So it's a lot to kind of do it. So have that group specifically, for that topic.
So you have these Friday meetings, and the focus is going to be how to integrate empathy circles into a family dynamic with the sensitivity of all the power dynamics that are involved in a family setting.
And on Saturdays, I started a team and had created a website for it, project website, to hold empathy circles with congressional representatives. And I've got my congressman here, he's a Democrat, has agreed, I got him on camera, saying he's going to take part by the end of January. I set a date. I'm getting better at asking these questions, set the date, set the time, get very specific. And would he help with, setting it up, he and his staff, which means reaching out to Republicans. So getting a team together to work on that. So that's in the work.
So you recently landed your congressman, meaning that you had him agree, even on video, that he'll participate in Empathy Circle. And in order for it not to fall through the cracks, you're getting better at kind of locking down the date and stuff like that. And you have a team around you to help you fulfill that project. Building a team.
Yeah, I think my time's probably up. So.
Oh, it is. Thank you. It's about 3 minutes now. But I just wanted to make sure, as it is in any empathy circle, Edwin, that you have that sense of, I've been heard for what I wanted to share there.
I do.
Okay.
So we're only doing 2 minutes for each thing?
Yeah, about 2 minutes as an initial, and then back and forth for even a few minutes as necessary in terms of, so until you get that sense of knowing you've been heard there, Peter.
Cool. So I get to choose. So Timothy, are you playing with us? Can you be my listener? Okay, cool. So the question is how to ameliorate family tensions politically. I don't know. I'm reflecting on my family, and there is political tensions between my mother and her sister. And on my parents' side, they're more, Fox News. Even though we're all Canadians, so we're kind of at a distance from this stuff, anyways. But they're more Fox News, supportive of Trump. And then my aunt and uncle, they're more, CNN and totally anti-Trump, and for anyone who's against Trump, essentially. And some nasty exchanges are going back and forth, mainly towards my aunt, towards my mother, calling her racist and stuff like that, just for supporting, or not even, I think I wouldn't say supporting, just for using certain talking points that you would find on Fox News.
Okay, so I heard you sit back and lean back and reflect, and initially say, I don't know. And just kind of wander, let your mind go into some of these tense and somewhat charged exchanges, particularly between your mom and her sister, and coming from your sister towards your mom with labels like racist. And so you're kind of just taking that in, and you kind of your mom and their family more on the Fox News side of things, and your aunt and her family maybe more on the kind of CNN or somewhat semi-anti-Trump and pro. So folks in these camps have had these exchanges, and you're naming that right now in this moment.
Yep. And the other piece I said is that they're saying nasty things, mainly one to the other, my aunt to my mother. And yeah, I have the skill set, given all the stuff I've been doing in Empathy Circle and other stuff outside of it, to kind of mediate if I wanted to. But even me, who's pretty good at this shit, like I'm like, oh, this is too much work. It's like, it just seems like a kind of energetic opportunity cost for me. So yeah, I'll pause right there. That's an interesting thing. Like, even though someone like me who's quite skilled at it doesn't go out of his way in order to ameliorate an issue that's quite alive in his own family.
Yeah, thank you. I think that's about 2 minutes total, but I'll just check in time there. But yeah, like there's these intense exchanges, and you can see yourself having the capacity, should you choose, to maybe effectively mediate. And you're just seeing the drain of energy, and also the drain of energy even to consider like approaching and offering that. Like it's not in you to really lean towards that. And you're noticing that, and it seems like you didn't say this, but you're kind of making sense out of that. Like, interesting. Even me in my own family with this capacity, I'm not necessarily jumping at the opportunity. What does that mean? Maybe you're wondering about that.
Right. Thank you. I feel heard.
Cool. Peter, I'm grateful that you feel heard after that brief exchange. Cool. So I guess it's my turn to speak to that. And let's see, we'll just kind of go around the circle. Edwin, would you be willing to
listening.
listen? Thanks.
And hearing your gratitude for Peter.
Yeah, I'm grateful at the sense of warmth and kind of just hope and relaxation that I had this exchange with Peter, who I've never met before, except briefly by screen last week. For me, there's a little bit of electricity or warmth that someone's giving me the feedback that we've connected. And I do radio, so I don't get that on radio, and so I feel an extra sense of satisfaction and appreciation from that little exchange.
Yeah, so you feel a sense of satisfaction and warmth from the exchange.
Yes.
And it's in contrast to being on the radio where you're just speaking, you don't hear from people.
Yes, exactly. There's a helicopter outside. Let me do a quick door closing. I'll be right back. Okay, so I asked the question initially because I'm feeling a little bit hopeless because of the tight bonds that families can have and the strong history families can have. But for when these divisions happen, how much energy they can cost. There's a cost. I think Peter used the word cost. A cost to actually approach and engage in some healing. And the word emotional labor comes up. And so my hopelessness comes up around that. And also from a text exchange that my friend just shared with me from her father, between her and her father across the country. They've been a little bit estranged, but he has ended up labeling her and you Democrats and da-da-da, like this horrible, heartbreaking exchange from my perspective. So I just heard that yesterday. And so, yeah, so the cost, but also just like, come on, what could lead a father to talk to his daughter like that, to label and dismiss and insult? Yeah, so I think I'm feeling a lot of pain in my gut, in my chest, and my throat. It's like there's bile coming up. I feel sick about it. So it's more than hopeless. It's like, yeah.
You're really feeling hopeless about it because you have the example of your partner and her father and the sort of the bile,
No, my friend and her father,
oh,
not
okay.
my partner. Yeah.
Your friend and your partner, I mean, your friend and her father and their father, I guess, I mean, shouldn't use.
Right.
So, and you're just seeing that, there's a certain hopelessness because it takes so much energy and cost to address a conflict like that. So it seems like two parts. One is it's such a big problem, and two is it's just for yourself maybe to step in there and try to do something would be so time consuming.
Yeah, and I guess I'm hesitant because, families in my culture are kind of sacred. So for me to come and butt into a family to try to help, who the hell are you? Get the hell out of here. So I don't see, because family systems are so deep and entrenched and complex, so, like how can a family system open up to have some of that mediation? It's hard for me to see that in this moment. That's where I'm at.
Yeah, if you don't see a gateway really to even step into, a family dynamic because it's so intertwined and there's really no gateway to step into it.
Hard to see right now. Yeah, I mean, I know there are gateways and way, it is possible to have this kind of healing in this moment. I think because of my pain and because of my humility around family dynamics, I'm having that struggle with hope.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you sound like you didn't want to say it's totally hopeless, but you're really struggling with hope because you've from the dynamics you've seen. So
yeah, and now just having you listen, I'm just letting myself, or some sadness is coming up, like behind my eyes, and some mourning, some sadness and mourning around the deep pain of where family members can't get the other family member, just cannot get them. So there's sadness coming up. And the last thing I want to say is just anger. I'm furious at the people consciously dividing humans, using different parts of our brains against ourselves. I think there's really conscious dividing happening. And I don't know who those people are, but I'm angry.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so you're pissed that people are trying to divide on purpose, and some real sadness that there is all this pain and disconnection happening there.
Edwin, I feel great. When you said pissed, that felt great to hear that word. Thank you.
I'm feeling really heard with the word pissed.
Yes.
Okay, well then I'll speak to Peter, keep the circle going. Yeah, I feel kind of optimistic. I see again that political, getting the politicians, they're modeling dysfunction. So if we can have them model function, it does seem like it would have that trickle down again. So I have some optimism about that. And Timothy and I talked, as I mentioned, about doing a state proposition. You write up a proposition, you can have it passed by a vote of the people, but you can use the political mechanism to do training of empathy, so I just see that. So I kind of optimistic at one level.
Mm. So you're optimistic, especially if these politicians are going to be modeling empathy via Empathy Circle, given the whole trickle down empathy thing. And you said something about I didn't quite understand this, but you said something about a state proposition that gets passed, and then that somehow that's related to Empathy
Yeah,
Circle?
you can have the citizens can put out a proposition, and it gets passed through the vote, the state, and it becomes law. So the citizens can create a law by doing getting petitions signed. You write up the proposition, what you want, you get several 100,000 signatures on it, and then it'll get on the ballot during the election. So I'm thinking of creating a proposition on empathy. I'm not quite sure yet. It's like empathy is the state value or something, or we agree that we want to foster empathy in government and do something. I don't know how to frame it, but it's something that to use the political structure, be it that, or even running for office, as the empathy candidate. So I was going to add empathy to my middle name. So it's like Edwin Empathy Rutch, empathy for state assembly or empathy for Congress. So kind of using the mechanism to sort of advertise, the machinery to advertise the value of empathy. Yeah.
So you wanted to use the current machinery of the state proposition to put empathy on the ballot somehow. And then you're also considering someone, maybe yourself, run as the empathy candidate, and you would even change your middle name to Empathy. And I imagine wear that shirt everywhere you go.
Exactly. And then the campaign would be doing empathy circles. It's like, to be on the campaign, you'd have to learn how to do empathy circles and hold empathy circles, right? With people, we do home empathy circles, whatever. And then even if we lose, it's a win because we've spread the word, right? Because you get media attention. So it's kind of like spreading the message through the media. And so I think it could, yeah. So I'm kind of optimistic. I have all these ideas and just not enough time to do them all. So yeah, but I have all these fun ideas.
And I'll finish this and imagine my turn is over. So not only are you optimistic, but I got the sense that you really came alive with this idea, even though you don't have much time to actuate it. And the idea was to, amongst this sort of maybe this new political campaign team, they're practicing Empathy Circle amongst themselves, modeling it for others. And even if it's a quote unquote failure, if you don't win, the media attention that comes from it might spread the message of empathy and this particular modality.
Yeah, and I have all kinds of ideas around that, and so it gives me something to do with the rest of my life. It's like, yeah, it keeps me occupied. So I guess I'll end with that.
Cool. And then you ended with, have a lot of ideas related to this, so it's going to keep you occupied until the day you die.
Yeah.
And then you seem pretty happy about that.
Yeah, I do. It's fun. It's fun to do. Plus, I get to meet people like you guys. So.
Cool.
So anyway, that was our time. So we have like 5 minutes for doing sort of a debrief on, how was that for you, Timothy? And
was that 25 minutes in total?
That was 25 from the presentation to now.
Cool. And you're keeping track of that for us?
I am. I got it.
Cool.
I got it.
Thank you, Edwin. Wow, how was that for me? It went by real quick, real fast, because it was a topic that matters to me, that my heart is alive with. I think that, and I'm realizing that, in designing these circles, a good question can be everything, really can get things moving. a good, well-planned question, you know, that focuses enough, right, in a direction that it's also relevant and matters and is heartfelt. Anyway, so that felt good. That question felt good, and things went by quickly for me. I was engaged. I was nourished. I had a hard time not responding when you, Edwin, were talking. I just wanted to laugh and jump in and just, you know, so keeping the structure was a little challenge. I do have a question though, how my introduction went. You know, I just kind of offered what I've absorbed, and I wanted to try it with no notes, no whatever. I think keeping it simple, and I'd like to have that in this training. I'd like to have that I can draw it out anywhere and say, all right, here's what we can do. And so I'd like to hear some feedback about that. I did feel good that I was proposing these as questions, and I asked your agreement to proceed. That felt good. And to receive your thumbs up there and acknowledge if it was just 1 or 2 thumbs up, like really, like your full interest and you know, mutuality in any circle. I would want anybody to be, you know, fully in, you know. So that felt good to kind of assess that and acknowledge that. And then the content was helpful. I am one for both intellectual and emotional empathic reflection. So I'm glad that happened right at the end there, Peter, when you said, yeah, and you're pretty happy about that. The rest of your life, spend it like that. And Edwin laughed and threw his hands up. Yeah, come on. For me, the emotional resonance there, I value a lot too. So that felt good. So I would want to support that as well as, you know, content, because I like to see bonds build between people. So I like that. And so understanding, intellectual understanding, I see is really helpful, but I don't want to get into debate. And if I hear where somebody's coming from, I want to hear, you know, their values as well as their strategies. So yeah.
You want some feedback from us? Oh, sorry.
Yeah, so yeah, I'd love to hear from you. Any feedback or any thoughts?
Well, I could jump in. You have sort of your Timothy style, which is, you know, a bit different, but it's, I've done this so much that it's hard to know what it is that someone who's not familiar with the process, how much they would get. You know what I mean? I fill in all the spaces. So I'm not even sure if I'm not good of a, to know. It's because if someone has never done an empathy circle, would they be able, you know, would they have known what to do? But I don't, you're done so much facilitation, I'm sure you'd work them in. So, you know.
So yeah, you're saying from how I set it up, it may not have been as easy for somebody brand new to know what to do.
I'm not so sure. I don't know, because I've done it, I filled it in. So I just wonder, I just sitting with that wonder. We usually, I also, when we give the topic, we also say whatever's alive in you too, to leave that sort of open too. So that was the one thing.
Okay.
So otherwise, you know, energetically, I always enjoy your presence, and, you know, just, you've done so much facilitation. It feels very natural. It's sort of a very Timothy way of doing things. And, you know, it's kind of a fun way.
I have a question for you, Edwin. Is it, did he hit all the points that you wanted him to hit? Like, is there, like, there's an expectation if we bring this out to the world, like, I'm sure we can kind of like stumble our way to get people to in them, but it's like, well, we have to hit this point, the 5 agreements, this, that, or whatever.
Yeah, well, I don't usually say this is an agreement. For me, it's a bit more emphatic. It's like, this is how the structure is. If you don't want to do the structure, you know, maybe you wouldn't want to be here.
Right.
So Timothy is a bit, the thing with the open-ended thing, it can turn into a discussion of, well, let's talk about the structure. And then it's like 2 hours of talking about what the structure is going to be. I mean, I've had that happen. You open up a can of worms, and it's like, it just, you know, so it's like, I'm kind of more, this is a structure, you know, if you don't agree, kind of, maybe you shouldn't be here. or I'll reflect back. Oh, I hear you really don't like this structure, but how about we really try it, you know, or something like that. I wouldn't be so emphatic, I'd empathize. So in terms of the times, I wasn't quite sure if we were doing 2-minute turn times, or you wanted people to speak for 2 minutes and then get a reflection.
Yeah, I didn't get that either.
It was a little unclear.
Thank you.
But what was it what did you want? Or
yeah, I wanted folks to have 2 minutes to speak, and then
uninterrupted. Okay.
Uninterrupted, and then have a chance for somebody to reflect back the main points of it. Yeah, I didn't make that clear.
Yeah. So that's sort of a difference in the structure. Like it's, you know, you just pause when you feel like you've expressed an idea or two and then get a reflection versus 2 minutes. And then it would be a question of how do you measure, you are keeping time for 2 minutes, I guess. So.
Good. This is such helpful feedback. Thank you. I'm taking these notes. Maybe we could take another 30 seconds if there's anything else you wanted to suggest. Maybe
Peter.
Yeah, I think those are good things. Like the agreement thing kind of threw me off too, because I'm also thinking about what I'm going to say when it's my turn up, and I wasn't planning on saying that. And then that does shift the frame of the kind of the thing. And then I wasn't clear on the minute thing, but otherwise it was, you know, high energy. People are going to be excited coming into it. Yeah, and it's like same thing with Edwin. I kind of know the format, so I know what I'm walking into. So I'm more curious what Edwin wants from us type thing when we kind of give the spiel of it.
Great. Thank you. Thank you. I feel grateful and full and satisfied. Thanks for the feedback and for the experience, both of you. Really, really appreciate it.
I had one more thought about something else to do is try to send out before the circle the how-to, so that they already, you know, the participants have already seen a video, have seen the PDF or whatever, to sort of prep them. So, I mean, I'm always forgetting something, like even, I mean, it's like, but it's amazing to me how little you can kind of get away with in terms of presentation. So it's kind of interesting.
Good.
So, okay, so let's reset. You want to go? Got 25 minutes, Peter.
Cool. All right. Welcome, you beautiful people, to another session of an Empathy Circle. I'm going to be your facilitator today. My name is Peter Lindberg, and I imagine everyone watched the Empathy Circle video before. Is that my understanding? Okay. Timothy, great, cool. So I'm going to just high level go over what the Empathy Circle is, and then we'll go over the modality again, and then we'll jump right into it. We have 25 minutes in total. So we're here to build our empathy muscle, essentially. And, you know, we all have different definitions of empathy, and there's different definitions floating out there. But the one I hold is to deeply understand someone else's world and reality. And this technique that we're going to be engaging in a moment, Empathy Circle, is a great tool to not only understand, but convey you understand someone else's reality. And this brilliant man, gorgeous man, Edwin Rutsch, he created this modality, and he's been taking it to different places, like the protests in Berkeley, and he's been going to different groups like Extinction Rebellion and different politicians in his area, congressmen, to practice this. And the intention of it is to build this muscle and spread it and build a culture of empathy. Because I think we all have this felt sense why we're probably here, is that a lot of people aren't talking to each other. A lot of people aren't understanding each other. And things would be a lot better if they did, or at least tried. So that's what we're going to work on. And so you watch the video, you know what you're walking into. Just briefly how it's going to work. There's 3 roles. There's a facilitator, that's me, and that role is fixed. And then there's a listener and speaker, and those roles rotate. We're going to have 3 minutes per turn. So for each turn, there's going to be 1 speaker and 1 listener, and I might be both, given how it shakes up. So we're going to start with a question. This is going to we're going to evolve, kind of attract the conversation around this question, and so someone starts first. We'll pick who starts first in a moment. They choose a listener, and they speak for the duration of 3 minutes. And then during that 3 minutes, the listener is going to repeat back what they heard. And so it's not just going to be just like 1 3-minute dump and they talk and then they repeat back what they heard in 3 minutes. There's going to be pauses throughout that 3-minute duration. So if you're a speaker, have kind of compassion for the listener, just kind of have a sense like, okay, I spoke maybe a lot, maybe give a pause. And then when a pause occurs, then the listener comes in and repeats what they just heard. And that goes on for the 3-minute duration. And if you're the listener and you're getting overwhelmed, like you can always jump in and say, hey, can we pause right there? And then you can jump in and say what you heard. If you think you'll forget. And once the 3 minutes is up, I'll be the timer, and then you will hear this. I will gonna make a beepy sound on my phone. So, and then finish up your share, whether you are sharing or listening. And then as a listener, you become the speaker, and then you choose someone who you would like to be the listener. So I think that's everything. Is there any questions, anything that's we're not clear about? Cool. Beautiful and good listeners here. I don't even know why you guys need this modality. So the question that we'll start, even though I'm Canadian, I love my American friends. Thanksgiving apparently is tomorrow for you people in the United States. So what is something we are grateful for in the world? And maybe a focus on the contentious political environment. What are the good things that are happening? What are the things that you're thankful for? So that's one question that I'd like us to speak on. Or alternatively, you can always speak on what's alive to you in the moment right now. So if that's question not alive, you can start off with what's alive for you. And then during our turns, we can kind of pivot to that question, and the conversation flows all over the place, which is quite cool. So that being said, is there anyone who would like to be the speaker first? I see Timothy shaking his hand saying, Timothy, would you like to go first?
I'm always open to dive in. Not quite sure. Nothing's jumping out of me right away. But yeah, I can begin. It's what we're here to express. Yeah.
Cool. So just choose a listener, and then once you begin, I will start the timer.
Okay. I would like my listener to be you, Peter. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Something I'm grateful for in the contentious political spectrum of the reality in context of Thanksgiving. There's a couple things. One is more mixed. The other is just profound gratitude. The profound gratitude I'm feeling is for the structure of a constitution that includes as many people as it could. Like there is a structure of inclusion and voice and representation. And that foundation, I know, is responsible for in big part for this union continuing, this union of this country and these states, because of this essential as water and air, this human mammal fabric of needing to be heard and be included in the decisions that affect life.
Cool. So in considering the question and then the context of Thanksgiving and then the political climate, you're grateful for your Constitution in America and how it includes many voices, it's inclusive, and it's sort of the bedrock of what is needed for a great society. And it relates to what we're doing right here with building empathy and understanding.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks. And then I guess the other thing I'm really grateful for is humorists and late night talk show hosts and their commentary on the ongoing Trump era. I'm grateful for that, but I'm mixed about it. I'm grateful for it because I've had some great belly laughs, and I've even been moved almost to tears by some of their expressions and sharing, just really, there's so much heart in that and a lot of humor. But what I'm mixed about is some of that humor can be construed as at the expense of somebody who may be working with or allied with, kind of the Trump political machine in this country. You know, kind of the hidden, you know, come on, what are you doing, you idiot? You know, it's kind of can be insulting. And for me, that's not the kind of humor that really fully works for me. It doesn't. It can be, you can get a little, you know, mean satisfaction from it. But so
Right.
I'm mixed about that format of our ongoing kind of political dialogue. But I am grateful for humor. You know,
So
humor. I'm grateful for humor with heart in it. You know, with some meaning and care in it.
right. So what you are grateful for is the humorists, the comedians, the late night shows, but there is there's a conflict there that you're experiencing. In one hand, it's like bringing you personal, like laughter, joy. It's making it bring you to tears sometimes. But there's also a sensitivity that if the jokes become a little bit too mean spirited, it's going to turn off potentially half the country. And so what I'm getting from that is that humor with heart is something that you think would be needed right now.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
so we're done. I just wanted to, we're done this turn. Have you felt heard with that?
Yeah, definitely. And the last thing I would say, humor with heart means humor that it's humor with dignity, that honors the dignity of every human being. You know, you can get pretty silly still doing that because humans are funny. So that's the last thing I would add. There's that thought.
And so it's the human with heart is having a sense of dignity for others if you're making a joke.
Yeah.
Cool.
Thank you.
All
Yeah.
right.
And yes, I know that I've been heard, and I feel grateful for that. Thank you, Peter.
Beautiful. Thank you. Edwin, you beautiful man. Would you like to be my listener? Okay, good.
Yeah, so I'm getting a compliment of being a beautiful man, is what I'm hearing.
And those compliments are not over yet, my friend. So
there's more to come.
Yes. All right. Yeah, what am I grateful for this current climate? You know, I feel there's a lot of opportunity. Right? There's a lot of opportunity here, and yeah, let's say there's a lot of opportunity for growth.
Yeah, so you're seeing a lot of opportunity for growth and sort of a sense of gratitude around that growth can take place.
Mm-hmm. And it almost feels like selfish because everyone's like, oh, the world sucks and, you know, everything's terrible, you know, the world's falling apart. But I'm like having the most fun that I ever had in my life. So it's like, you know, I think, you know, Edwin, I'm practicing Stoic, and then we just kind of geek out about moments like this, like lean into it.
Yeah, so around you, everybody's sad, depressed, and you're just feeling pretty good because you think maybe it's part of being a Stoic that, you know, you thrive in sort of situations like this.
I wouldn't say everyone around me. Most people around me are sort of like weirdos like myself, but I was sort of speaking about the wider culture, at least how mainstream media paints it, like everyone's after each other's throats and there's a lot of contention going on.
So it's not so much the people immediately around you, but the wider culture that seems to be depressed.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Around you is sort of strange people. And
yeah, and one of the opportunities that's coming alive right now is similar to Empathy Circle. There's this thing I'm working on called the anti-debate, where it like utilizes closed loop communication, you know, active listening, gamifies it, but with sort of like the window dressing of a debate. So like the Trojan horses, you get people in a debate, but is really practicing understanding. Because I do think the new world that we're entering into with so much unknown unknowns, having sort of this like cocksure confidence is going to be less important, or at least displaying that cocksure confidence is going to be less important than being really cool in not knowing what the fuck is going on.
So you're having some excitement about this non-debate, you're calling it? So
anti-debate.
Anti-debate, and where people come in with a debate mindset, but under the surface sounds like there's some kind of a listening, and that's kind of underlying skill or mindset of just not knowing for sure what's going on is something that's needed, sort of that sense of doubt or?
Yeah, I would say that, and then the time is just going to run out in a moment. I would say it's sort of a Trojan horse. You get people in the door because like, oh, we're in a debate, but then really like the design of the format really puts emphasis on understanding rather than scoring points.
Oh, so that people are coming in, they think, oh, there's going to be a fight, there's going to be a debate, and that's going to draw people. But underneath, it's really a different structure. Right? That's kind of what draws them in, and they'll get kind of into this deeper sort of dynamic.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
And then the other piece I said on the previous share is I think this will put emphasis on new skills that are needed in our new world. Instead of like signaling that you have cocksure confidence, you are signaling that you are comfortable not knowing what's going on.
So this process shows that you're comfortable, you feel comfortable in not knowing what's going on, instead of having sort of this pretend confidence, or you didn't say pretend, but just, yeah, saying you have confidence, but yeah, not.
Yeah. Cool.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. I feel heard.
Speak to Timothy then. Yeah, in terms of, it's like I heard the question, what are you grateful for? It was like, oh, Thanksgiving is always the gratefulness question. It's like, so there's a little bit of a pang there. Oh, there's a gratefulness question. So that was the first thing that sort of rose a little bit that came up.
Was that a little pang of annoyance? You're just kind of tired and of answering the same kind of question in a rote way? Is that what
Yeah, it maybe the roteness of it, it's the same question, and maybe I don't connect to my authentic gratitude, but then something else came up. I mean, just saying, as that came up, I thought what did arise was like these empathy cafes. We just had the one, the trainings, one finished yesterday, and there was so much gratitude. It's like, oh, so grateful for this. It's like, and just kind of, and my sense of gratitude for people even coming to, take part in these trainings, and to have a whole group of people with this same intention of fostering an empathic, more listening, empathic, sensitive way of being. That, it's really, I have a lot of gratitude for that. And I hear a lot of gratitude from others too.
Feel here, you meaning where?
I hear them share their gratitude, the participants.
So it's so meaningful for you when people show up with the same basic intention to experience and grow the culture of empathy. And when people put their bodies and their time there, it's really meaningful for you. You celebrate this. It fortifies you. Is that uplifts and fortifies you?
that too, as well as that I hear gratitude from them too. It's like, it sort of feels good to know that there's this gratitude, that something that we've done has sort of contributed to their well-being, and that they just feel a sense of gratitude.
Wonderful. Yeah, you enjoy contributing to the well-being of others, particularly in this particular design around empathy circles and learning. It's like, wow, I got to contribute. People are expressing thanks.
Yeah, and now if they would just contribute financially, there's another part to this, people. There's a donation part if you feel comfortable with that. So
you'd like people to put that thanks into money language and make donations to this work.
Right. It takes money to make all this stuff kind of happen. So there's that aspect of it too.
Right on. Right on.
Yeah, I had another topic I was going to share. I don't think I'll have enough time, but maybe I'll jump into it real quick. Is something else that came up to me was just that when I set up the empathy tent in Berkeley, and you came to the empathy tent, and there was a conflict started between, a guy and a woman kind of out on the streets, and you came and kind of mediated that, like, just on so spontaneously, so smoothly. It was just, I always remember that, it was just so well done. And I think I want to acknowledge the kind of the deeper skills that you have, the empathic presence and skills in the moment, so, yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, so I hear you expressing appreciation, gratitude for skills and that example of when that happened in the moment, and how that unfolded. You're taking some pleasure in enjoying kind of the deeper skills, but also that they're available spontaneously in me, and that you see that and you enjoy that. You enjoy the art of it, or the just the skill of it.
Yeah, it's in the wild, right? It's not like some little workshop. It's like out in the wild, in the so-called real world. Like, how do we make this happen? So yeah.
Yeah. The application in the wild.
Yeah,
In
I
the-
feel
in the-
fully heard. Yeah.
Cool, thanks.
Cool.
Okay, moving forward.
Would
Let's
you
see.
who'd you like to be your listener, Timothy?
I'm considering, because I don't know what I'm going to want to say yet. I'm having an experience that it was a little bit of an abrupt ending with Edwin, so I'm savoring everything that he said. So I guess, Peter, I'll talk to you as the facilitator in this moment, just hearing his contributions and his gratitudes, and then having a powerful memory stimulated in my mind that I also share gratitude about in this moment. There's just this savoring, this kind of gratitude that makes me a little bit speechless or something.
So after hearing Edwin's share, there's a sense that it ended abruptly, and you wanted to have a moment just to savor it, and because you were reflecting on your experience there and what it was like, and you have gratitude sort of kind of flowing back towards Edwin, and yeah, you just want to take a moment and savor that.
Yeah, thank you. And I'm realizing what the savoring is about. I learned a lot too in that moment, the memory that Edwin just brought up, and so I'm celebrating that we can learn this stuff, and then that we surprise ourselves in the moment when the chips are down, and it's like, when something's called forth out of you or me or anybody, that something's there that we've been working on for so long. I guess you know what it is. I'm having this need for trust in myself met in this moment, and it feels really good. Self-trust. That's being stirred right now, just to savor that, because I haven't always had that, and I still don't. I still,
Mm-hmm. So when you were reflecting on what that savoring was, like what was it that you were savoring? It was sort of like being able to, how you first articulated it, how it was like being able to handle and learn new things in the heat of the moment, and then it seemed like you had an insight that occurred that, like, you know what, it has to relate with self-trust. It was something that you might have had an issue with, or you alluded to, and right now you just realize, yeah, that self-trust was there, and that you want to savor that.
Yeah, I want to strengthen that. I want to strengthen self-trust. That each of us can pull upon creativity and flexibility in the moment of relating to other human beings, and therefore increase our effectiveness at connecting ourselves to each other and others to each other. That's something that I really value.
So you don't want to just savor it; you want to strengthen it, and sort of utilize the creativity and flexibility needed in order for that self-trust to manifest. And if it does manifest, all the multitude of connections that it might be in service towards.
Yeah, in service. Thank you. Thank you. I have a deep value of service. I'm deep mission, to see empathy happen everywhere. If I can contribute effectively to that, it was saying, like, I've lived a good life and I can die happy.
So the word service there really seemed to trigger something for you, and you thanked me for that word, and because that is a real value that you hold, and you want to be of service in bringing empathy to the wider culture. And if you play a part in that, then you could die a happy man.
Hey, that feels good. There's leaving a little warmth behind my eyes, like, oh, I feel that. Yeah.
Mm. And so a little warmth behind your eyes, and you feel good hearing all that.
Yeah, so I'm happy to pause here. This would be just fine.
Cool. So you feel
You're
heard?
heard.
Yeah,
I'm here.
cool. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Edwin, how are we for master time? One more round. All right. So I'll choose you, my friend, and I'll begin now. Yeah, I like the Timothy expressing warmth behind his eyes. I even like that metaphor. I think I'm gonna, or that saying, I'm gonna use it in the future.
Yeah, so really appreciating Timothy's metaphor or feeling, just the expression of that feeling of warmth behind the eyes, and you're going to kind of use that as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't have a desire to talk about the prompt question about what I'm grateful for. And so I'm kind of going to give a moment to reflect on what's alive right now.
Okay, really checking in on what's alive in the moment.
And one of the sort of the things that I'm uncertain about Empathy Circle, which is just kind of happened right there, is you didn't articulate everything back to me what I said. And I'm like, is that a requirement? Because I don't really care, but is that like sort of like a hard heuristic, either as a facilitator or as a participant, that I have to abide by? Because I try to do that as a listener. I try to articulate everything that the person said back to them.
Yeah, so you're just wondering about how the reflection is. Can you just do a short reflection, or do you want to just hit every point and you're just sort of sitting with the question of is that sort of what the process sort of requires or asks for?
And since you're the guy that founded it, so you're just like, you're modeling it for me. So I'm just watching you. I'm like, okay, whatever Edwin does, that's okay. So that's going on. But okay, I'll pause there.
Yeah, so because I developed a process, you're wondering, just kind of seeing, oh, whatever I'm doing is okay.
Mm-hmm.
So kind of observing.
Yeah, and so with each share, like with each person's kind of, when they start talking to stop talking, there's like information packets that are distinct there, and I try to get them all, and get the sense that the other person gets understood. And with a couple of your shares, and I know it's with other people, they don't get all the information packets, but they still convey that the other person's been heard. So yeah, I'll pause there.
Yeah, so you see that when you're sharing, you're sort of sending out sort of information packets, and that you can reflect each one of those pieces of each of those packets. And you notice that I don't reflect each of those and other people don't, but that's something that you sort of strive. And it sounds like you have some curiosity of how to, what's the best approach there.
I guess the curiosity is, as a facilitator, and the time is going to beep right now, is that something that I should, this is my original thinking, is that something I should put emphasis on, like, get all the information packets during that turn, or do I just depend on the listener to say, oh yeah, I felt really heard?
Yeah, so you're wondering, as a facilitator, do you make sure that all those packets gets heard, or are you just leaving it up to the listener whether they feel heard or not? So you just have some curiosity or wonder about that.
Yeah, I feel heard.
Oh, great.
I feel heard enough.
Yeah, heard enough. That's it. To your satisfaction. So do you feel heard to your satisfaction? Yeah, so how was that for you? And do you have, I could just answer those questions since you posed it before you go. So for me, it's that does the speaker feel heard to their satisfaction? So you could grunt, and like sometimes you're just so kind of wrapped up in your own thoughts and sharing it, almost whatever the reflection is doesn't really matter, too. So I guess I kind of just see it as you don't have to hit all the packets, just enough to have the person, feel heard to their satisfaction. Sometimes if as a facilitator, you see it's so far off. And then if it's so far off, and especially if it's a conflict, situation, I might step in and just sort of
right.
I heard this miss. But if it's a normal conversation, it kind of like cleans itself up over time, is what I find. So I try to do, I do minimal facilitation. You know, I don't want to step in. So I try to do minimal, but so it's not a hard and fast. And then there's a whole issue of how we listen with those packets, which is, you know, Timothy is a certified NVC trainer. Do you listen for the feelings and the needs underneath and reflect those? And so I think that's a whole different module, you know, training modules, like how do we really listen, you know, deeper.
Right. Gotcha.
So how was that facilitation for you?
For me, yeah, I felt it went well. I felt I communicated well enough in the beginning to kind of set up the modality. You know, I felt if I had more opportunity to do it over again, it's going to get more clean and, like, you know, I can articulate it better. So that's always something that could use massaging on. And I think it went smoothly, the facilitation. So yeah, I'm happy with it.
Want some feedback from us, or?
Yeah, totally.
Okay. You want to go? I already shared something, Timothy, if you want to go first.
Yeah, I did enjoy the way you set it up, particularly when you talked about the roles and the intention. Hey, listen, our intention is to strengthen this capacity in this muscle of empathy. We're going to practice it. We're going to have a question here, and the roles as a facilitator, the listener. You know, anyway, so the way you did that helped me place myself into what roles we're going to be in and what's going to happen. So I enjoyed that. Some nice structure. And I enjoyed you staying with the structure, with the time and the actual alarm. For me, I don't like doing that, but that was really helpful. And I saw how useful that can be, you know, just having that really firmly ring in the space. So there are a couple of things I really enjoyed. And I also felt overall it went well, both the practice and the flow. And I even enjoyed when you just said, listen, I'm kind of done with the gratitude, but here's what's alive. And you just did that. And got those questions reflected. And that Edwin didn't actually answer them in the moment. He was just being with you to be in the question. And that's always helpful. Anyway, so those are some things, yeah, I would agree that it went just fine.
Cool. Thank you.
And I'll just share that you're talking about those packets of information. It's like, I wish my brain was younger like yours. It's like somehow it's just harder for me to remember, you know, it's like, it's interesting. I don't know, I just find it. And so that's a whole discussion. I would love to really talk more about how do we remember, how do we listen for the feelings, and you know, so I'm always sort of struggling, you know, searching too for how to reflect better. Because sometimes, you know, there's a reflection and it just feels so spot on. I can just feel the connection, and yeah, it's really beautiful when that happens.
The way I try to do it, it's like I have all these memory techniques that I use, like, you know, the memory palace or mind palace, where you kind of like, when you figure out an information packet, I just place it on my head, like kind of visualize it, put it on my head. If someone's doing a long share, and then I put it on my forehead, put on my eyes, and my like, you know, and then I just kind of go back to the head. That's if like I let someone go on. And I do like the idea of propositionally reflecting back what, like, the content that they said, and then the emotions that they conveyed with that content. And I think you can be artful by, when you express back the proposition, you express it in the same energy that they express it in too. So yeah, I'm kind of in my head, I'm working on a system on all of this.
Yeah, it's like we need a special group to really look at this and, you know, kind of lay that out and see how.
Yeah, there's been some great work done on reflections, layers and levels of reflection, you know, words, feelings, needs, what's said, what isn't said, you know, like, yeah, there's been some good work done on that.
And guesses, feelings, and needs, guesses, yeah.
Yeah, and it seems people get, some people get tripped up, like just like someone comes in for the first time with the empathy circle, and it's like, I don't know what to do. And because we don't really teach the skill set how to reflect. We just kind of give the modality and let people jump in. So that would be cool to have something available like that.
Mhm.
And also how you want to be heard, to get better at like, what kind of reflection do I really want, you know,
Ooh,
to feel
nice.
heard, like kind of get more nuance. Can you say it a bit more this way? It's like, you know, having sex, like, can you touch here a little more? You know,
Right,
a little more.
that scratches the
A
itch.
little-
You're almost there, almost there. Pull out. Oh, yeah.
I've seen that somewhere too. It was through the focusing, through some
right.
relational focusing of being more clear on how you want to be heard. I saw something, remember, that really spoke to me.
Yeah, in the circles that I like to hold, after somebody speaks, I ask them to look inside as part of the process and make a request. One is for empathy, one is for silence, or one is to move on. Maybe one is to never mention this again to anybody else. I'm never going to talk about this again. But to make that request in that moment. Yeah, that was an interesting move.
Yeah, but I do appreciate the structure. It has a structure. It has when you're giving the introduction, it has the structure, but it feels comfortable and calm, and that kind of creates a sense of, for me, like, oh, it feels well held, you know, having that structure.
Are you, Edwin, are you saying that directly to Peter?
Peter, yeah, to Peter. When
and I would second everything Edwin just said. Good structure, comfortable, calm, welcoming, confident.
Cool. Awesome. Thank you both.
So you need to leave it in 10 minutes or something?
About at the hour, top of the hour. So
top of the hour. Oh, okay. So we
8 my time.
Oh, okay. So we do have, we have quite a bit of time then. I was kind of thought it was like in 10 minutes you had to go, but so you have 25.
We're here till another hour. Like everyone is, right? Yeah. I had to go at like when there's a half hour left.
Oh, okay. Got that. So, how do you want to use the rest of the time then?
Now this is a fun question.
No, yeah, it's dangerous.
Edwin, yeah. Oh my gosh. Give us, we could have some fun. Now this is recording, but we could come up with a whole new thing and move the field of empathy forward right now. We could we have Edwin Rutch. Peter, we have beautiful Edwin Rutch with us.
We've got 3 people here who do kind of all serious work. So I mean, I did have a thought about doing empathy training within STOA. I was thinking maybe like a 5-week thing in January or something, where we have 2 empathy circles. You know, we have a gateway empathy circle for this. You know, the first one is on values, and then 3 sort of practicums of, you know, so maybe we could do something. I don't know. Maybe, I don't know. You have any thoughts about that?
Yeah, I'm open. Just the framing is because there was, I think, 20 people. I gave them certificates that from because we had the 4-week thing in October at the STOA Empathy Circle.
I'm just going to be right here. I'm listening.
Right. And then so they got certificate of completion. And then the idea was that set that up for the training. So I don't know if we invite those people in because there's like 20 of them. I imagine more will come. Or we just have another different framing for the training and they actually get the certificate.
Yeah, it could be like if we did 2 empathy circles as part of it, then that would be enough. You know, I think if they just did 2, it would be enough so it could be a full contained course. They don't have to do the certificate, you know, that would in advance. That was sort of for joining these groups. We could structure, you know,
differently.
Yeah, so it was just a thought. I thought, well, since you're here, we could.
Yeah, I'm open for it.
Okay.
I like the memory palace or the memory head things. Like you could create one for the actual introduction to an empathy circle. You know, we could create the 5-finger thing or the, you know, like you could do that. And
100%.
Have that there.
Yeah, totally.
Mhm.
It's not the, I know it's not the skill set you want to focus on though with this thing, like memory techniques, because it's not really empathy. But I find it's like, I like challenging myself with these ones by having kind of like that like intense listening, because my brain hurts at the end of an empathy circle, because it's a really a workout if you try to get all the information packets in there.
Yeah, how do you deal with empathy fatigue? Because there's therapists that see 8 clients a day, an hour each. You know, for me, I'm in my role as a clinical kind of healthy lifestyle counselor, I'll maybe see 5 people a day, but then I talk to people by phone in between. And how am I conducting my own energy and my attention in such a way as to have resonance and connection and empathy in a healing way, but also not to exhaust myself. Like that's a valid, helpful inquiry.
I'm curious if you have the distinction, either of you, of like cognitive empathy versus emotional empathy, where, you know, you can kind of like, cognitive empathy is just, you know, the person's state and then you can convey it, but you actually don't feel it. And emotional empathy is you feel what they're feeling too, and then you convey it. So yeah, I imagine the one that's emotionally draining, the emotional labor one, is the emotional empathy, not necessarily the cognitive empathy, which is more like your listening muscle is being enacted there.
Yeah, for me, in my work, the emotional empathy, which the word that is being put out there in interpersonal neurobiology is resonance. Is resonance. 2 cellos and the different strings resonate at the same.
Right.
And that resonance, in my experience, is not draining. It's enlivening and enriching. And for me, the intellect, this is just me, my neurology, my intellectual understanding and conceptualization of somebody's state and then naming it, for me, that gets more exhausting. So the empathic resonance on the emotional level, the body level, is like play for me, and is kind of nourishing in a way. So I'm sure that there's been some functional MRI studies, you know, on these different kinds of empathy. I'm just wondering, you know, how they are, you know, what they're finding and what the actual distinction is. But one person I would recommend to consider checking in with about that in terms of her distillation of the research is Sarah Payton, Peyton. She's got a book called Your Resonant Self, and a lot of it is on that process of resonance. Yeah.
With the definitions, I think that's this emotional and intellectual cognitive empathy.
I'm just going to say goodbye to a couple of people. 1 second.
Okay, sure.
I'd love to hear this. Yeah.
I think that's a newer term, you know, and like I don't find it very helpful. I think it's somehow like the out of psychology or more cognitive science side of things. So there's if you go into the communication, you know, community, they sort of agree with that it's so interwoven. Like, how do you separate the two? That
Interesting.
And I sort of feel that way as well, that my definition of empathy is what we're doing in the empathy circle, in terms of, you know, we're empathizing all the time with mirror neurons. We're sort of helping the process with reflective listening, kind of deepening it. What the emotional empathy is, sometimes they're meaning like, oh, I listen to you, you're talking about gratitude, and suddenly I feel anger, right? It's sort of my reaction to what you're, and so a lot of the definitions are it's a mess in terms, even academia, what the heck they're talking about. And that reaction is actually a block to empathy in terms of my staying present with you. So, and then the intellectual, the cognitive empathy, sometimes they're confusing it with perspective taking, which I would call imaginative empathy, in the sense that I can imagine myself being you, I can imagine myself being in the future, I can imagine myself being anyone or anything, and then feel into that role. So the whole cognitive, emotional empathy is a total mess in terms of any clear definition that I've seen. It's coming from people who have never done, like Carl Rogers, right? He did 40 years of empathic listening. He experienced it. And this other stuff is coming from people who are kind of messing around with concepts, it seems to me, at least. So I don't know, you're shaking your head, Timothy, if that sort of resonates.
Sarah has done a lot of research on this and integrates a lot of this teaching. Empathybrain.com is her website. And what I come back to is that moment of, it can be a little like electricity, where there's a recognition that runs down the length of my gut and my chest and my body. And it's a flash of insight. And for me, it's resonance, because it is engaging both cognitive and emotional structures in my brain. It's an emotional, physical experience and a recognition. And I'm not telling myself a story about that person's state. There's just a full recognition. And in that moment, it's an aha, it's like, in the words accompaniment and what's the other word? Accompaniment and resonance have been starting to describe that. And so, and that's where I've seen the healing power of empathy happen, where I've actually got that resonance happen between me and a Black man who was held at gunpoint by the police without any cause, and he didn't even do with anything. And he hadn't been able to sleep for 2 weeks. When we sat for one session, and this electric shiver of recognition came in when I was guessing for his experience, and the word dignity came up. The word safety came up, but it didn't do anything. But when this recognition of electricity came through me, and that word dignity came up between us, we looked at each other and tears flowed and something shifted. And then in that trauma, from the moment when the cop cocked the shotgun to his head, went away. He came back the next week, and he didn't need therapy, and he came up with a strategy of writing a letter to the police asking for an apology. But the heaviness was gone. He'd slept well. He'd been able to talk about it. So there's something there, maybe beyond mirror neurons, but it's a full resonance, even just for a moment. Anyway, thanks for hearing that. It's just fun to be stimulated about what it is and where it comes from,
I think that resonance, there's a resonance when you reflect back too, right? You're reflecting back and you're getting that resonance. And I think that resonance is, you get a release of oxytocin when oxytocin gets released through. So there's, if you're feeling a lot of cortisol, stress, you get a reflection, there's a resonance, you get little oxytocin, and that kind of is more relaxing and, creates more of a space. So I guess with those definitions, Peter, I'd be interested in how you see the definitions in terms of what we're doing. Like what do you mean in terms of what we're doing when we do the empathy circle? Where is the cognitive and emotional empathy in the moment? You know what I mean? If we can identify it versus kind of what the academics are kind of like throwing around.
And I want to comment on Timothy's resonance and how I understood it. I find when I initially heard that distinction, it was quite helpful for me, the cognitive versus emotional. Someone who sort of practices stoicism, like I can really shut myself off from people's emotional state. I don't feel kind of emotional empathy. A lot of the times I can kind of turn that off, and it's quite helpful because I don't get overwhelmed. And I can be very good at cognitive empathy, not only understanding on a propositional level, but also kind of understanding what the internal dynamic is going on with the person, so I can articulate the emotion as well. And then all the somatic practices that I worked with, like circling and stuff like that, it allows me to feel the person too. So that's kind of how I started with the cognitive, and then I opened up the heart, and I see them as like different skill sets that I can kind of switch to. And my acting background, I have an acting background, they help with kind of like unleashing emotions as well. So I do hold them as quite distinct, and I feel like I can flitter to them. And what Timothy was talking about resonance, it seems like it's a mixture of the two of them with a sensitivity towards the vocabulary that the other person uses in such a way that it's like tethered to non-judgment that kind of like unlocks something and melts away the trauma or shame that the other person has about that moment. So I think that's what I was getting with Timothy was saying.
Oh, I like that. Putting in the non-judgment and the kind of the deep presence of connection. But yeah, a combination of full kind of human shared experience. And I was going to add to that where consciousness is not alone anymore, where my experience is replicated and enhanced and revitalized by the experience and energy of another brain, another human, another being. My singular consciousness is now not alone, and it's touched by the consciousness of another being. Yeah, and something happens in that moment. Yeah, and I like when you, I would agree with you. It's a combination. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like a combination of service towards something else, so like transformation or healing or acceptance.
Right.
So in terms of the emotional empathy, like, are you saying for you it's like you're listening to someone and then you have a reaction to it, like a feeling of warmth or
well, you feel what they're feeling.
Okay.
That's how I hold emotional empathy. So if you're like you're feeling joy, then I can shut that off and not feel your joy, or I can turn that on and feel your joy. And so that's emotional empathy. And then cognitive empathy is just saying, oh, you're feeling joy right now, or like, or whatever propositions you said when you were feeling joy. Yeah, so that's how I hold it's like two different distinct skill sets, and both of those skill sets I think can be instrumentalized towards good or evil. Like you can instrumentalize emotional empathy for like acting purposes, for example. But if you're doing it towards good, then I think it's gestures to what Timothy said about that resonance, healing, melting the trauma, shame, and whatnot. And then that has to be like tethered with that unconditional positive regard, like that total non-judgment that Carl Rogers talks about.
Yeah, that's so, Peter, thank you so much, because I can do that too. I can have sheer intellectual empathy, kind of like a really high quality facial recognition AI algorithm.
Right.
Oh, that being is in the state of, tension on a scale of 8 out of 10, and there's no physical or embodiment. And it's like how Sarah puts it, how a hand surgeon would look at your hand. Oh, the structure, oh, the elegance and the way it, okay, I can see where this, as opposed to how your partner would look at your hand when you're ill and would hold your hand and have a whole different quality of experience, and you would feel the difference.
Yeah, there's also that when I sense someone else, and here, like when you're talking about your hand, I can feel, the quality of it, but how big is that felt experience of my consciousness? I've had it where something just comes in like a big wave over me, but I can feel, a little bit, I feel enough of it to be able to understand or sort of resonate with it. So there's something about the level of it, you know what I mean? The strength of it, how much of my awareness that it takes up. So I guess I don't expect, at what point does it become cognitive and emotional, right? And there's even, so it's complicated when you really get into it. Really, I've been doing this a while, and it's like, geez, it gets complicated in terms of breaking it down.
And there seems like there's another piece here, like let's just like working thing, like there's two different skill sets, cognitive and emotional. Like you can parrot what someone says and then you can feel what they feel, and then that's that. But it's like doing that in a way like you're getting inside them, and they want to be felt and heard in a certain way. Like you can pass a multiple choice test in what they just said, but is that how they wanted you to hear it and how you wanted to say it back, you know. And it's the same thing, just because you felt them, it's like, did you articulate how you felt them in the way that they want to be heard and understood?
Yes.
And I think that's the word that you said with that gentleman, with the whatever word that you used, the one word that didn't, you use one word that didn't land, and use one word that says fuck, probably has a history with that word, so much emotions tethered with that word, and it just unlocks something.
Yeah. And it's how I say it. Am I feeling, I mean, the way Marshall Rosenberg taught this empathy, and he was a student of Carl Rogers, he said that these universal human needs are intelligent. They're actually spirit in action. They're the fundamental design of our mammalian existence, but they're spiritual too. So when I'm resonating, the bell of dignity has been rung in my body by a story or by looking into the eyes of someone who suffered a loss of it. And that bell is like moving in me. And I look at him and I say, brother, and here's how I said it. I said something like, brother, man to man, human to human, was this about dignity, you know? And there was a tangible experience, right, of that quality, of that need. And that just makes me think of that, you know. It's like, what is the resonance, and like, how do people want to be heard? Like, I love that, Peter, that question. And what I'm also learning in my role is that when I reflect, when I allow my emotional mind and body to be awake, and then I reflect back maybe some words, but with a little bit of emotional juice, like, hey, there's another being over here that looks like Timothy that is actually touched by, you know, what you're saying over there, and is actually diving in and swimming in the emotional experience of what that might be like. It's a guess, you know. And I find that people love that when I do that, when I let myself resonate on an emotional level, but I'm also naming a few of those words, you know. So like, how do people want to be heard? In my work, where the intention is to empower and heal people to maybe quit smoking or deal with alcoholism or manage their diabetes, you know, and that's my day job. People love it when they get that kind of reflection in terms of what's meaningful to them, you know. It's interesting. It's interesting.
Yeah, I imagine if you're fully present, like the way you're saying you are, with that kind of adjacent intention of service, then you're just like, you're feeling into the ecology of words that they're using, and then something just manifests within you that pings internally, like dignity, that's it. And then it just comes out. And then, you know, if it doesn't have resonance, well, maybe another word come up, but then, you know, it's like in the ballpark. And then if it lands, you know.
Love it. And then the person, something shifts in that person. There's something been named. The message has been received. Something can now move forward and change. Like, thank you, Peter. Beautiful. Wow. Pinging and whatever else you said. I'm enjoying.
Well, that's the thing with the empathy circle. It kind of creates a container. We kind of jumped out of it, but I think everybody's so empathic here. You know, you have to do the reflective listening. But as the structure, I think is sort of this foundational structure, it taps into all that, you know, those ways of connecting. So I think that's sort of the, you know, the power of active listening or empathic listening.
The ecology of words and feelings and experience. Love that word. Thank you, Peter. Love it.
And what I like about this modality, Edwin, is I think like people who have high discernment in this area, like Timothy and myself, we can just have a normal conversation without the structure, and then we can ping each other all day and engage in empathy porn if we wanted to. But when people are coming in that don't have the skill set, or they're coming in with their own ideology, and if they accept the framework, they can't escape. You know, it's like they can't escape, and eventually, if they do their reps, do the iterations, then that pinging will start happening. So that's what I really like about this.
Yeah, and I tell the story, like in my family, we do like a family empathy circle around conflict. We go for 3 hours, and then suddenly the process falls away, and you just know everybody's hearing me. You kind of move into a space, and you don't even need, you know, the training wheels or the crutches or what have you. Got to close all the rooms. Yay! So it was great talking to you guys, and we'll be heading back over.
Now, this is the recording for this
it is,
this class, so everybody gets to watch our discussion.
Oh no, I said
They
I
do.
said the phrase empathy porn. Edit that out.
Oh,
That's gonna
shame.
go viral. I know that was gonna go viral now.
And actually funny though, that's the ironic thing, you know, most porn maybe lacks empathy, right? That's what people have a problem with it. Like if there's sexuality with empathy, I mean, that's kind of what we would love to see, you know, right? So
You should have called it empathy tantra or.
yeah, hey.
Maybe that's more accurate.
Right on.
Okay,
Is this recording going to be on the YouTube, or is it going to be private for the facilitation?
It's public. Everything goes up there. This is like number 7, and you know 6 of them are recorded. So it's not like you know that many people are going to watch all the way through. But anyway, see ya. Okay.
Okay, so welcome back, everybody, and we're going to hand it over to Rita to do the debrief.
Right. Thanks for reminding me. Yeah, so actually it looks like a few more people are going to hopefully land back in. Maybe they accidentally left, so we'll just keep an eye on that. So we have about half an hour to just kind of go around and hear from everyone about what that was like for you. I'll just have a quick look at the questions so that I can remind myself. Yeah, basically we just want to hear what your experience was like as a facilitator, how it might have changed your thoughts or feelings about actually, you know, being in the role of facilitating an empathy circle, and what strengths did you notice about yourself? Yeah, and what potential challenges have you experienced or foreseen? So yeah, and you can talk to any of those. I might just pop those in the chat, and then we'll just go around. So yeah, Joe, would you like to go first?
Yes. Might not catch everything that you've is that in the chat now? Okay. So my experience, I found it interesting and positive, both as a participant and also as the facilitator. So it's the first time I've facilitated in this format. So there's some growing points to kind of remember, and especially to remember like being in different roles at the same time. Yeah. And also in our circle, one of us had some technical difficulties with the connection and the video setting, which was fine. And it was another point to kind of like to feel into how to interact with perhaps sometimes not able to hear or to see someone, or when the connection keeps dropping. So that was an interesting learning point to feel into that. What strengths did you notice about yourself? I guess I was probably quite willing to fail and to give it a shot regardless of experience, and being open and wanting to listen. Yeah. So thank you.
Thanks, Joe. I just want to check in with Kavita whether you can hear us or not, because I know your internet's not always stable, especially in the storm that you might be in. Yeah, so feel free to write in the chat and when you can hear us or something, and then we'll bring you in for your debrief when you're ready. In the meantime, what about Priyanka? How was your experience?
My experience facilitating was really easy. I was very nervous in the beginning, anxious about the time. Oh my God, I better keep note of the time. I better keep note of the time. And my eyes were always going to the phone rather than listening to what was happening. But then after 1 or 2 times, I became relaxed that my phone will beep. It's not the end of the world. And I was more into it. And it was very inspiring. I got a lot of ideas about empathy and how to do empathy with family that I didn't know before, thanks to Victoria. And Joe gave me a lot of coaching and tips about how to facilitate, for which I'm very grateful. And yeah, it was really wonderful. Thank you.
Thanks, Priyanka. What about you, Victoria?
Well, okay, my experience was good, and I didn't feel that nervous. But obviously, because the two people that were with me knew exactly what to do, so I feel great with that. And it was a really nice experience. It was really nurturing, and I was enjoying listening to the two people that were with me, and I felt confident with them. I hope I can feel this confident with other random people too. Thank you.
And did you have any challenges or notice any strengths in yourself through the facilitation process?
Well, I think that just like Priyanka, I was so nervous about the time, and sometimes I forgot to pay attention about what the people was actually saying. But I think I need to practice and handle that too.
Yeah, great. Thank you. Over to you, Samantha.
Thank you. So I was in Rita's group, and I felt really comfortable there. I was a little bit nervous to start with, and I think probably I became more confident as I went along. I did find it difficult to wear those two hats where you were. That was challenging to watch the time because I was getting too much into the talk and the listening. So just sitting in those two spaces was a little bit challenging. But I've really enjoyed it. And I think that that process has given me more confidence to go ahead. And getting the feedback from everybody else within the group was really good too.
And how do you feel it's changed your excuse me, thoughts about being a facilitator in this space?
Well, I know that we had homework last week of going and doing an empathy circle, but now I feel like I could probably do that with a few people this week more comfortably than last week. So I will definitely try.
Great. Thanks, Samantha. Over to you, Celine. How was it for you?
Well, it was great learning, and the challenge of tracking the different things, the timing, the people, the listening, and so on. I think that's a matter of practice, and I want to learn. I think that I can do this, and I look forward to practicing some more. I have enough to learn to keep me engaged, and it's very rewarding to hear people's honest expressions. I enjoy it. Thank you.
Thanks, Celine. Sue, what about you?
Hi. Yeah, I thought it was fabulous. I just think each time you do a circle or a process, you learn so much from just seeing how other people introduce the circles, what they say. You know, you pick up everyone does it in a different way, but they're all really valuable, and it's great to learn from other people. The feedback was terrific from the people in the group, and Bill particularly, who facilitated our group. Just such a wonderful learning experience. It's sort of really it is invigorating and motivating, and it's fabulous. And one of the challenges that we had in our group was with the technology with Kavita, and that sort of presents challenges to everybody. It was interesting to sort of work out a way of dealing with that, and guided, of course, by Bill, who I'm sure has encountered that many times before. But it was fabulous experience. Thank you, everybody, so much.
Thanks so much, Sue. Over to you, Suzanne.
Oh, I thought our group was fabulous today. I enjoyed it so much, and I really got immersed in it for the first time. And that felt, the analogy I used was like getting a runner's high. Although, as I said, I don't get that too often. But it was really good. It was great learning. I felt, in terms of my participation, I felt quite calm, which surprised me. So I guess that was a bit of a strength. But as far as challenges are concerned, it's just trying to listen and facilitate at the same time. But loved it. Thank you. Particularly to everyone in my group.
Thanks, Suzanne. Great to hear. Shani.
Thanks, Rita. Yes, I had a really positive experience as well. I was feeling nervous. I certainly wasn't feeling ready to facilitate a group prior to today, but there's something about the challenge of having to have a go, and there's a really great feeling once I had that experience. So very quickly, I now do feel ready to trial an empathy circle myself as a facilitator in the real world. And so that's a really good feeling. So yeah, thank you.
Awesome, go you. What about you, Timothy?
I'm just appreciating what folks are saying about the motivating and vitalizing experience of diving in and doing this. My confidence has increased for sure. And I noticed that I have a pull to create agreements with the group and ask permission and get consent and kind of slow down in presenting the group. And I understand that could actually take a lot of extra time. And for this particular model, to present it firmly and clearly, and this is what we're going to do here. If can you agree to this? If not, then maybe we can do something else differently elsewhere. But being a little more directive is something that I was learning about doing. Setting up the actual dynamics of the circle. And then my main challenge is, I feel a real strength of being flexible and warm and bringing, a full sense of empathy and connection to a group and supporting that. But also just for me, bringing people to the group, just how to invite people and present it in a way that is most effectively welcoming. Just the idea of giving people a handout. Here's what we do. Would you like to join? But I want to talk more about that 51%, how to invite folks in an enticing and effective way. Thank you.
A good question to explore together. We'll make time for that at the end, I think. Thanks, Timothy. Michelle.
Yeah, so I was in Rita's group as well, and with Celine and Samantha, and yeah, it was really solid. It was kind of it just really well structured and flowed really well, and just a really good dynamic in the group. And we got deep into content, but got to practice lots and lots of skills. So there was a really good balance of both. And the strengths I noticed, well, I got a nice opportunity to play around a little bit more with the intro, I think, and just the first intro worked well, but just needed a little bit more structure. And then the second one, then I kind of I noticed that I'm still trying to get that so I'm keeping going with kind of playing around with different ways of presenting it. And then for myself, what I noticed is I'm still trying to build confidence. Yeah. So yeah, it felt like a really, really good opportunity to do more. Yeah, just get lots more practice in. Thanks so much. Thanks for a great group, Rita.
Thanks, Michelle. Over to you, AC.
I really enjoyed the experience as well. I had a wonderful group, and so I want to thank them all for sure for being just like excellent models and participants and feedbacks. One thing that really stood out to me, Leona mentioned this invitation to play with the process and experiment with it in like a more inviting or like a less formal way, and so like play with it in the sense that we're more malleable and able to free to make mistakes, which I thought was really it really stood out to me as like a nice way to phrase it. Yeah, every time, like every practice just builds confidence, and I appreciate that to the utmost. I don't know. Like that's just, I love it.
Thank you, AC. I just want to try turning off all our videos to see if that gives Kavita some better bandwidth for a minute. Kavita, are you able to hear us? Hello, Kavita. I'm not sure if you can hear us. Just wait a few more seconds. Are you there, Kavita? Okay,
She could also type something in the chat if we can't hear her.
Yeah, so Kavita, if you can hear us, I've just posted a thing in the chat for you. Oh, she's gone now. Anyway, okay, let's turn our videos back on. So we'll talk about tech challenges, I think, as well, because that comes up sometimes, as you've noticed. But yeah, did the core facilitators also want to give some feedback, debrief about what it was like in your circles? Leona? What was it like in your circles?
Yeah, look, it was an absolute delight, and the group was so supportive of each other and just orienting like this is a learning space, and let's see what we learn and try. And that was just an absolute pleasure to support that learning. And then noticing what came up as it came up and being responsive to that, like, oh yeah, it's tricky timing and facilitating, and that's normal. That's how it goes. And then I forgot to pick a listener, and AC picked that up. So there were just these normal kind of events that, you know, skills that you start to pick up as a facilitator. Yeah, it was a really good experience today, and I felt the group feel more confident, which is what we want.
Thanks, Leona. What about your group, Bill?
Well, I was really impressed, especially about the bravery and you know, coming forth and being authentic. And then also, Kavita, we don't introduce challenges until the next week, and that's optional however you want. But Kavita had a 10 challenge on technology. And so we were all trying to deal with that. And that itself brings a really nice sense of community and taking care of each other. So I really, really enjoyed it. Thanks.
Thanks, Bill. What about your group, Edwin?
There was just 3 of us in the group, so we went through with the 2 participants, and then we had sort of the space for 1 participant. We just ended up just talking about empathy. So both Timothy and Peter are very experienced facilitators, so it was a lot of fun to sort of connect with them and just kind of share thoughts and ideas and kind of catch up.
Great, thanks, Edwin. Sorry about my sound. It's buzzing. I will mute myself when I'm not talking. Over to you, Lou. How was your circle?
My circle was delightful. I was with Victoria and Priyanka, and we just had very deep, interesting, meaningful conversation that was inspiring and illuminating. And I felt like we learned a lot from each other. I certainly learned a lot. And we had practice facilitating. not that there wasn't anything particularly challenging in the facilitation. Everyone did a great job taking their turn and facilitating the circle. So for me, it was much more, the facilitation was very, very smooth, and it was the content that we shared with each other was really quite moving.
Yeah, great. Okay, so I'm wondering if there's any questions in the group. Sounds like it would be good to maybe get some feedback from the core team about how you've all dealt with, tech issues, as well as talking to what Timothy said about how to get people involved in empathy circles, and then we can maybe go into general questions. Does that sound like a good thing to do, core team?
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
So yeah, who wants to speak to tech challenges? How have you dealt with them? Maybe Bill, do you want to say
Flexibly.
something about? Oh yeah, there we go.
We deal with
I was just going
them.
to just moment by moment as best you can, but the big one I reckon is what Rita you do, which is, sometimes if we all turn our videos off, enough bandwidth comes for people who've got bandwidth issues, or it can be really helpful in then turning them back on. But there's not a lot you can do around bandwidth. You have to respond as best you can.
What did you do in your group, Bill?
Well, we tried turning off the video. Well, we encouraged Kavita to turn off her video, but it seemed that there's a storm, and so she was losing power, and it was a bit overwhelming. So she did get in some facilitation. We're really glad to do that. I also tried to shift the time so that we knew she was having a storm, so that she would get a chance to facilitate and do that early before she lost her bandwidth or internet connection. Well, that was the best that we can do. Other than that, I would say that I was dealing with it poorly. You do the best that you can and you accept your limitations. That's what I mean. Thanks.
In the Empathy Cafe series that we hosted for Extinction Rebellion, we had a few people come from Africa, and like their internet networks are just like really, from my understanding, they're just like really poor connection, like in the country. They're not very well established, and so it was tricky. So we kind of dealt with it a similar way. I really have no added techniques to add about that, but just keeping the support and the connection. And maybe there was like extra like connection via email later or before, and support around that, and appreciation for them showing up and trying to get them involved in other ways, whilst also like inviting them to text. Like, I think we've already mentioned that. But Lou, you had something else to say.
I was just going to add, well, I was going to say that, video takes more bandwidth than audio, and text takes less bandwidth than audio. So there's a cascading thing there in terms of if there's a weak connection, pretty much what people have said. I had one very moving circle with someone in Africa who could only connect by text. And that person did take their turn in the circle by texting, and we would read it into the circle, and then they would do more. And the effort that was made to keep that person in and let them have their turn, which is really like embodying a culture of empathy. I mean, how do you respond to a difficult situation like that? You don't just say, well, whatever, sorry, you can't do it. A lot of effort was made to try to include the person, and that's like a beautiful thing that is empathic in itself. And so I think that, I think those are all different ways of dealing with it.
Just wanted to like clarify something about that. It's like when someone texts in their speaker response, as the active listener, you just summarize and type that back in case that wasn't clear, because sometimes, they won't know that it's being read into the circle. They're not part of that experience. But by texting back, what you've heard, it's like, having a text conversation.
And
So-
actually in that circle, he could hear us. We weren't able to hear him and we weren't seeing him. So he could hear us reading it back. We said like, can you hear us? Yes. So he would type it, we would read it, we would reflect it back. And so yeah, it was very sweet.
Really nice. Did anyone want to say or add anything else about the tech challenges, or is that kind of as clear as mud so far?
The only thing that I'll add is that these are specific tech challenges, relating to Zoom, but we do, before the pandemic especially, we go out into the street. So in the street, the tech challenge was we had a tent, and so it's the wind. For any more than 10 miles an hour, you can't do it because the tent blows away. So there are tech challenges wherever you go.
Great, thanks for bringing in the real life situation. What was the other question? Oh yeah, Timothy had one about how to bring people invite people, inspire people to join circles. Was that it, Timothy?
Exactly. Thank you, Rita.
Great. Yeah, who wants to speak to that?
I'll mention something.
Edwin?
So I do a lot of the bringing people in. So it's a lot on Facebook. It's a lot on just kind of getting the word out. All these calls are recorded and I post them, and people see them, and then they say, "Oh, I think I'll try that." So it's almost like sort of marketing. It just sort of posting on a lot of different groups, and so it's. Yeah, it's like ongoing, how to kind of get people involved. There's an issue, even Peter mentioned, he holds a lot of these circles, different types of events that people at first are very excited about something new, right? Then there's a bunch of people show up. We had that maybe with the Extinction Rebellion, the first couple of circles. Everybody comes and it's like, oh, okay, I know how this is. And so it's really like this ongoing kind of a question of how to kind of get people engaged, inspire them, and
Yeah, I think it's a oh wait, Lou was going to speak first, and then I'll add something. You go, Lou.
You can go first if you want.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I was just going to say, I guess it's like I've noticed that it's very much about relationship building as a facilitator, of any modality. You're just kind of like, cool, I'm ready to do this. Let's facilitate. But so much of it is about the pre-relationship building of building a bridge where people are inspired and they see value in this work and communicating about it. I mean, sometimes, it might be quite easy, like, Shani, you've just talked to your boss and you can do it with your co-workers. That's so cool. And so I think working with existing groups that have established as well and bringing this to them as an extra or as a foundational skill that they can use to build better relationships and better collaboration strategies is really great. But if you're working with separate individuals and you're just kind of going out to the community, it is a lot about just kind of doing it so people can sort of show up and have a taste. And then but there's also, I think, different ways to do it, where it's like you can do like a one-off cafe as an intro, or you can do like a series where you build a relationship with people over time, and you can get people to commit to that series if you want, but people do it differently.
Yeah, and what I was going to add was just, in terms of framing what you're doing, framing it in a way that's of interest to people. So in my town, I did a series of public empathy circles, which we were calling conversations. And first it was on bridging political and social divides. So we said, come and if you're interested in bridging political and social divides, come and we use a structured listening process where everyone gets a chance to be heard. And so, then people know why they are coming and they know something about what sort of process is going to be used. So, And then another was just building community through deep listening. And so if people are interested in community, building community, they want to come, or crossing divides. So you got to pick an issue that people are represent a problem that they would like to some movement on, or, you know, and it might be better collaboration, like Rita was saying, learn how to collaborate better, or learn how to improve your relationships, or something like that. So that's my experience.
I'll just add one. It could be a whole module, training module of its own, just to create, you know, how to really get the word out, and it just to inspire people to take part. The one thing that does seem to be working well is with actually having a training. Like there's empathy cafes that are sort of open. I'm finding a lot of people are interested in a systematic, structured learning process, just like everyone here. So there's something about speaking to that energy seems to attract people. Also noticing the time, just.
I'm just aware of the time. If you, sorry, were you finished, Edwin?
That was it. Just that I just noticed we're at the bottom of the hour.
Yeah, great. Yeah, so if you have any other questions, I reckon just type them in the chat so we've captured them, and then we can address them next time. Or in, and while we do that, was there anything else that either the core team wanted to say to conclude this session?
Just a reminder that for next time, next class, we will be practicing intros again and practicing facilitation again. But next time you'll have the opportunity to have some difficulties happen in your circle if you would like that. So you can practice as a facilitator responding to some difficulties.
You can dial up the challenge to as much as you want. And I see Timothy's already dialing to extreme. And then we'll also be doing you'll have new empathy buddies. I'll send out an email, also the link to the session feedback, and to also encourage you to hold an empathy circle between now and next week and report back on the introduction of how it goes. Yeah. So there'll be an email with all that.
Thank you.
Bye-bye, everybody.
And a twinkle fingers again for our group photograph. We got to get Joe in there. We didn't have Joe before, so now we got it's official. Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Leona, for today.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
One and all. I'm going to connect with my empathy buddy from last week too.
Do that too. Catch up. Yeah, with you
catch up with my empathy buddy.
Thanks for another lovely session. Thanks, Rita.
See you guys.
Thanks,
Bye.
Michelle.
Yes.
Everybody, nice to see you again.
Yeah.